6:30, sir.
Cheers.
Thanks, sir.
Cheers. Being a search and rescue pilot on board, there's just the three of us in the team. That's one as a commanding officer plus two. And as such, we are duty 1 and 3. And that works out that we are duty pilot for, say, a forenoon and then standby in the afternoon. Today, I'm the duty SAR pilot, which means that it's my job to fly the SAR helicopter during the VRCHA, the vertical replenishment with Line S. Line S is a Royal Fleet Auxiliary. It's one of a number of ships which follow Ark Royal around on its deployments in various parts of the world. They carry various kinds of stores depending on the particular type of RFA it is. And it happens that Line S is the ship that carries the solid stores for Ark Royal, all the various foods, stuffs, beer and that sort of thing. So I will be flying to and fro Line S.
You been up top yet, Oscar? What's the weather like?
It's cold.
When are you going to come flying with us?
Well, as soon as we get a chance, so we keep asking, like, but we keep getting told, oh.
Morning. Morning. What time are you going to get airborne at 4-7? 11 o'clock. Mr. Penny, you can get it up on deck. I joined Ark Royal last year, and when I joined the ship, there were several wives on board Line S at the time, which I thought was a marvellous idea. Immediately I started making inquiries as to the possibility of getting a passage for my wife, Sheila, for this year. This is purely at the discretion of the Commodore of Line S, in fact. It's his ship, and he says who is allowed to do what. And at the moment, she is slightly under complement, so there are several cabins vacant. So I put in a letter to the captain of Ark Royal requesting that I might bring my wife on this deployment. I obtained an indulgence passage for my wife, Sheila, on board Line S, on an opportunity basis, really. Because they are under-complemented, the cabins would have been travelling empty anyway. So we're not charged for accommodation. And what we are charged for, or what Sheila's charged for, is the food, in fact. She is charged, I think it's £1.19 a day. There's another pilot, in fact, from one of the squadrons. And he's arranged to have his wife on board at the same time. And there's just the two wives from Ark Royal on board Line S at the moment. Being so close, there is a certain element of frustration that builds in. I sometimes wonder, as I'm flying over and I'm waving down and Sheila's looking up and waving at me, I wonder, what's going through her mind. Flashing past in an aeroplane, past your wife as she's looking up. It gives me a fillip, obviously. I sometimes wonder, what she was thinking at the same time. I think she gets a kick out of it, quite honestly. I don't think she considers that I might suddenly fall in the water, but I think the very fact that she can actually see me performing my job in some ways is better than actually being at home wondering what I'm doing. As far as my reaction goes, having her see me, well, that's a bit, I suppose, red rag to a bull in some ways, You've got to be very careful not to sort of say, well, try and cut this corner a little bit tighter and show a little bit of flair, There is an element of that, and you've got to restrain yourself. We have to bear in mind throughout all of this that it's a military airplane that I'm flying around in, and it's a completely military environment.
Have you seen Cliff? No.
There are something like 250 other officers in the wardroom, and we are the only two who have our wives with us. So we get a certain amount of teasing and ribbing from the other people. I mean, Ark Royal now is spending 7.5 weeks at sea between regional visits. Now, sailors go through quite a traumatic phase when they're at sea for that length of time. And if I'm able to go over to see my wife for a matter of several hours. In the midst of all that, several times, then the overtones are quite obvious. I'm flying about 2 to 2.5 hours this morning. If I do manage to get over later on, it'll be a tremendous excitement for me. I will feel a little tired, I must admit, but I'm sure she'll understand.
There's somebody moving about down there.
Where? Whereabouts?
Oh, it's the crew in the back.
What has happened there is that the boom, which is secured to his deck, has carried away, and we think one of the deck fittings broke, and the whole boom slipped. They have caught it because the guys holding it just by the boat there. We have released our jackstay and we're now free from him. It was great danger to personnel. They could have been thrown over the side, except that a safety net would have probably caught them. But it was quite a dangerous accident. It has stopped the jackstay route. We'll have to continue with VERCHAP, which is by helicopters.
Yeah, what's out the end there, Chef? Them brown things.
Pork chops.
Nice.
Like pork chops.
There's a lot of pork chops up there, isn't there?
Yeah.
I've heard a buzz that all chefs are queer, is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Is it? Yeah, I want to be a chef. I want to be a chef. Lovely.
There are two Wilfs, at least on board, as far as I understand it. One of them is the captain. The other one is a little kind of demon, dwarf, ventriloquist dummy. It appears on the television.
Andy, do you want to change position at all?
Yeah,
Up here.
can you get him behind that corner, then I can shoot the troops coming in and... Can you get him in there?
The Personalis 5 is possibly the lower echelon of thought processes on board, and I don't mean that in a class-conscious way at all. But he uses very bad language. But he does it in the nicest possible way.
Hello, mate. Where's Smithy?
Hi there.
All right. You been drinking Guinness again? Hey? What's that brown mark around your mouth? All right. He's a lovely boy. Does pick his nose, though, too. Can't understand.
Put it this way, they'll believe Wilf before they'll believe me. They think very rightly that he is very funny and good entertainment value, which he is.
You see, on the show, we use him with his silver jacket, don't we, you see? Which has got the slit in the back. But when I use the jumper, my arm comes in at a different angle, you see? Yeah.
I saw this sort of thing. That's all it is, a thing, really. Advertised in this children's magazine. And so I sent away for him, When I got a draft to the Ark Royal, I naturally brought Wilf along with me. And it was easy to sort of get him onto a show.
What you need is a blue arm.
Yeah, you never feel that. Always creative.
If we can get a jumper knitted the same as that.
Fleet Jossman phoned up one day, asked for Orion Pooley. I got on the phone and he said, I hear there's a new chap on board who hasn't reported to the reg office yet. It's not on the ship's books. I said, well, I don't know what you mean, sir. And he said, this Wilf character. So I said, oh, I see what you mean. He said, report him to the reg office at this moment. And in fact, we have got Wilf on the ship's books now, you know. He's got his own number. Also, Wilf's got his own telephone number in the Ark Roll telephone directory. That's the studio number, of course. People are phoning up and asking for Wilf now all the time, so I'm sure a lot of blokes do accept Wilf as a real person. We've had presents sent down as well, packets of jelly babies and cards and things like this, just like a children's program, and it's quite funny.
The technological side of it is not quite right yet, is it?
Yeah, I reckon if we...
Most of the material I use is what the lads generally think of life on board the ship, what they'd like to say themselves, but obviously they get in trouble if they did. Because if the lads had a go at an officer and sort of said, you know, what a wanker you are, I mean, they'd be in cells, you know, or they'd have a fine and punishment, you see. If Wilf says it, you know, they clap their hands and say, great, you know, Wilf's giving me a mention type of thing, you know, they think it's good. I know the skipper watches Wilf every week. One particular Saturday evening, he must have pressed the wrong tuner button on his TV set and he was creating hell. He wanted to watch the Wilf show and his TV wasn't working. We had to get a chap out there pretty quick, you know, to do it. I think the skipper does accept Wilf as a big morale booster to his crew.
Morning, sir. We've come to do a little bit of filming, if it's okay with you.
Switch made.
I think the captain definitely must be a good sport to put up with what we push out, you know. To see his officers sort of slandered in the way that Wilf does come out with it, although it's only in good fun, you know. I think he's worked it out, that it's all in good fun, completely all in good fun, you know. There's no nastiness about it at all.
Morning, Big Wilf.
Morning, Wilf.
How's things?
Pretty good, thanks. I'm glad you come up to help me.
Well, I thought you might need a bit of help, you know.
We have one more pump to go.
Who's that bloke over there talking down the thing?
That's the officer of the watch.
Is it?
210.
What sort of watch has he got?
Oh, he's got the forenoon watch.
You know.
He's doing a good job.
Makes a change on it, doesn't it? Usually loafing all down the wardroom, they sit down there sleeping all afternoon. Anyway, I'll tell you what, Big Wilf. What we was wondering is if I could do some rounds for you as well. Because I know you're busy up there.
Yeah, that's a good idea. You could do some of the rounds instead of me.
Can I do that?
That could just the job.
All right then. Thanks very much.
Righto, come again.
Certainly. Got it. Stop.
Nice.
I've got cramp in my leg and in my neck.
Yeah, it was coming out great.
Cheers, sir.
That came out, did it?
Oh, yes, for sure.
Yeah, you could afford beer about shaving your legs.